Welcome to the Book Tea with V.
Welcome back to this week's episode of the Book Tea with V, and this one is a belter. So let's start and let's talk some pop culture. So this week, I really want to talk about the pocket rocket that is taking over the music scene, Sabrina Carpenter. I am absolutely obsessed with her. I always have been. I've seen her movies, even in her early days when she was singing. But now her brand and the songs and the new album that's about to come out, I am so excited for it. It comes out on August 23rd, called Short and Sweet. You can't tell me you haven't been singing Espresso for the last couple of weeks. And now, please, 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 I won't shut up. And the music video, it's just iconic. Oh, she's just a vibe right now. Second piece of pop culture, and unsurprisingly, Bridgerton Season 3, Part 2 is now out. So next week, you can betcha that is all I'm going to want to talk about. Why they made us wait so long in between, I don't know. It's just cruel. But I am so excited to see what they do, the costumes, where the characters go. I cannot wait. Let me know your thoughts, because I reckon it's going to be a banger. But let's get into what the book tea is this week. And it's pretty much going to be very Rina Kent focused. So before I get into Rina Kent, I do want to mention Elsie Silver, because she revealed the cover for her newest book in the Rose Hill series, Wild Eyes. The orange, that tangerine look, it's so beautiful. I really love to see what authors do with their book covers now. And I think that we're so attracted to, really beautiful covers. Elsie Silver knows where it's at. It's a beautiful cover. I cannot wait to dive in. But I do want to focus the tea, part of this podcast, around Rina Kent, because I feel like she's provided us so much this week. So God of War, the final book in the Legacy of God series, is out. Eli and Ava, and I'm not going to spoil anything because, it's just come out, and, I want to give you the week until we really, really deep dive into it. But what I will say is Eli and Ava are my favorite Legacy of Gods couple. Their book blew me away. I was not expecting that plot. I wasn't expecting pretty much everything. And I feel like the spoilers that we were given really didn't allude to what we were going to get. And I think that actually really helped with the experience of the book. Eli was just like his dad, possessive, just so tunnel visioned when it came to his woman. I just loved it. I am absolutely obsessed with this series, that whole Rinaverse. It was so bittersweet. I have, the Rina Kent books really took me on a journey when I was first starting reading again. And they just sing to me, every single book, whether it was my favorite or, I've loved them all. Yeah, I don't know. She's just a very special author to me. She really is. And we got some very, very random exciting news this week. And personally for me, I was going through Goodreads when all of a sudden I see Rina Kent. And I was like, maybe there's a glitch or something, because we know what the covers are now. But then I, did a double take and it said Beautiful Venom. Someone pinch me. Dark hockey romance. That is going to be the next genre that she does. Can you think of a better genre for Rina Kent? Because I can't. There is nothing this woman can't do. I am so excited for this next step in what she's going to be writing. I love this author. I am so just excited for her next step in this journey. I love everything she writes. Very, very excited. And this brings us to my current read. It has been a slow week for me. I didn't want to immerse myself into too much because I knew that God of War was coming out. But I have been reading Scorned Love by Victoria Page. Now, her Scorned Fate series, I love this series. Scorned Vows is the one before, and it starts with Scorned Heir. Scorned Vows, that book has my whole heart. And I am about 40% of the way into Scorned Love. The enemies to lovers, the tension, it is giving me everything. But I also did want to mention Craving Chaos. That is coming out. It should be out by now. It's out in the world by Jill Ramsower. And that is who we're going to be interviewing this week. Jill Ramsower, thank you so much for being on the Book Tea with V. We are so happy to have you.
It's wonderful. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Now, before we get into it, I did come across something that I didn't know about you. And I know that everyone's going to want to hear about your mafia books and especially the one that's about to come out. But I had no idea that you used to be an attorney.
Yes. I think it's like almost a prerequisite for indie authors that you start out as an attorney. I had no idea at the beginning. Like, I thought I was a special unicorn that had like abandoned this like high power gig to then write romance novels. But it's like a dime a dozen, apparently. Like, so many indie authors that I've talked to are like, oh yeah, I was a lawyer too. Oh yeah, I was a lawyer too. I'm like, really? It's crazy.
You just have this creative like mind that you're just like begging to get out, but you do something else. Like, had you always wanted to write, or that's something that came later?
No, I had no idea. In fact, I didn't tell anyone that I had started writing. And so when I finished my first book, I reached out and told my parents, and they were like, what are you wrote a book? What? Like, because I was always a very voracious reader, but I had never really thought about writing. So it just kind of evolved. And I loved it so much that I quit my job very quickly, really, because I kind of hated it anyway. I did like contract law. I did some oil and gas, but it was not anywhere near as fun as what I do now. So when I saw the difference in how much more alive I felt with this world, I was like, this is where I need to be, like easy peasy. So yeah, I think, I don't know if it's so much the writing. I know what I think where I got confused was I knew I liked writing and I knew I liked research. I'm a big research person. I love doing that. And my parents were like, oh, you should be a lawyer then. I was like, you're a kid. I'm like, okay, well, I guess I should be a lawyer then. But that was not the kind of research that I mean, it's not nearly as fun as looking up. Yeah. Looking up what kind of beans they eat in Canada, in Quebec, so that I know to use the right kind of bean in a cabin.
And it is the small things, right? Like, I guess there are some skills that you would have taken from being an attorney that sort of cross over into this field for you. Is there anything that you've been able to go, that's kind of handy to know, like within your books now?
Yeah, I think, there's a good amount of contract work with production company for audio and narrators and the licensing. I mean, just a lot of different stuff like that I've kind of fallen back on it some, but I think a business sense more than anything.
Yeah.
That's when you're indie and you have to do the business end of things, like it's a whole different world from writing. So I think that's pretty tricky to find someone that is capable of doing both of those kind of
course
fields. Yeah.
It's so interesting. I love to see where people start, like where authors started and what their story is there. And I know that everyone is going to be wanting to hear about the mafia side. I know we're going to get there. But again, just before we do, you've also written paranormal romance. And again, I had no idea. I was, doing a little bit of stalking before we had this chat. And I was like,
lovely.
First I was like, attorney? Paranormal? What else has she got in her bag of tricks? Like,
no, that's, I read a whole lot. So when I got out of law school, I was like, I'm never reading again. I don't ever want to look at words. I can't remember if I'd had my second kiddo, first or somewhere in there. And the Twilight books had come out, and actually I didn't learn about them until the last book was out, I think. And my neighbor kept going, you've got to read these. You've got to read these. I went, okay, fine. And so like I sat down in 4 days and read all 4 books, like completely ignored all responsibilities and went, oh my God, I love reading. I forgot, like this can be really fun. So I went back. I started hitting up all of the kind of standard, that it was the Hunger Games, Divergent, a lot of YA, but a lot of it was very fantasy based. And so that was kind of that became my new world. And then it slowly morphed into more dark romance and mafia and all. I mean, Tears for Tess, Ashley Zavarelli's Boston Underworld. There's just a whole slew of people that authors and books that I just loved. And so when I sat down and started writing, though, I was like, what would I want to write?
Mm.
And my all-time favorite series, well, the original is 5 books. It's a 5-book series by Karen Marie Moning called the Fever series. And it is fantasy. And it is the only set of books that I have read over and over. I don't think I could ever get tired of them. I love them so much. I wish everybody would read these. I'm like, when people come to my table and ask about my fantasy series, if I mention that set, I'm like, I don't care if you buy mine, but please make sure you read Karen Marie Moning's Fever series. Like, it's
I need to write that down.
Yeah, it's so good. That was kind of my inspiration. And I took the girl goes to Ireland and discovers Fae, and that's, the beginning context. And then mine goes into Arthurian legends and a whole kind of different setup. But I just loved that whole idea. So yeah, I did a 4-book set, and there it stays in the ether.
Well, and it brings us nicely into, because like mafia is your jam. Like everyone, when they think of you as an author, I know for myself, it's mafia romance. What was when did the switch happen, and what was that inspiration to do that? I
mean, I liked both. Like, I read a lot of both. And so I mean, a lot of it was what did you go to the panel in where were we? Chicago? No, Denver. Hello. I did Chicago and Denver back to back kind of. But Denver, oh no, because it was Chicago was the panel. It
would have been Chicago. Yes.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm all like,
you've been busy.
You did the panel in Denver. Yeah. I did Mafia panel in Chicago.
There's a panel somewhere.
Yeah, I know. I sat on a panel somewhere. That was one of the first things that was asked was, where, like, why did you start? Or no, it was, do you draw from real life at all? Any of the stories and the elements of your books? In Forever Lies, which is my very first mafia book, The 5 Families, in the very back of that one, I have in the acknowledgments kind of telling a little bit about the fact that my dad was raised in Hell's Kitchen. He was son of immigrants, like English was a second language for him. Mm-hmm. And his whole family, he's 100% Armenian. So they came over, and he was kind of raised in Hell Kitchen on the streets. I mean, not like he wasn't homeless, but, and he had an older first cousin that was kind of like an older brother to him, mm-hmm. that was an associate that worked both with the Irish Westies and the Italian Mafia.
Wow.
There was a guy named Fat Tony. And so my Uncle Paulie worked for Fat Tony and the Westies and did, he was a bookie. So that cousin had a bodyguard named Louis the Count. And Louis the Count was never allowed inside my grandmother's house because he carried a gun on him, or a gun or a knife. He had a weapon, and that wasn't allowed in the house. So my dad would tell stories about sitting out on the front steps next to Louis the Count and talking to him, and just all the crazy shenanigans that his this older cousin and would come up with. Like, he'd bring home steaks that fell off the truck, and just. So and one of the main things that to me is always kind of near and dear to my heart, which maybe is why these characters always catch everyone's attention, is the grandmas. So mm-hmm. like Nana, and then there's another grandma in the 5 Families. So my dad was primarily raised by his grandma, and those ladies in the books are very much modeled after her. So I'm sorry if I'm babbling and you need me to
this.
Like shut up. Like,
no,
just
you're natural.
Okay. So it's my great grandma, my dad's grandma. She got enough money to come over to get out of Armenia, but she couldn't get into the States with her other siblings. So she ended up in Canada. And in order to get down into the US, she noticed at the border that the men would have their IDs checked, but the wives would just walk in behind their husbands. So she found a guy one day that did not have a wife with him and made sure she looked all nice, and got dressed up. And she just walked in behind him and pretended to be with him and was able to sneak into the country. And so then met up with the rest of her family. And they had lost like pretty much all of their extended family. They, were on their own. And so she was super tough, like hardcore.
Yeah.
And, family is everything. And so my dad, like, he had a story about how one day she was like 65 and walking home from the grocery, and she had like her couple of grocery sacks, and she noticed in the passing cars, a reflection, there was this man walking behind her, and she just knew something wasn't right. And she was like, I'm not going to go home, but I know this friend of mine was doing remodeling. So she goes towards the friend's house and rounds the corner. And when the guy comes around behind her, like following her, she clobbers him with a 2x4 that has nails at the end, because she knew they had a construction dumpster there where they had all the boards and everything. Yeah. And she starts like berating him, that's what you get for following an old woman. And yeah, like she was really tough and badass. And that's kind of my homage to her, is these ladies that are just as tough as the guys and running the show behind the scenes. So.
And such a unique experience that you have that to go off as inspiration, like real stories that you have.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Well, and that's my dad. I feel like I suck at verbal storytelling. Like I did okay right there because that stuff is so familiar to me, but I'm really not very good. Like I stumble with my words a lot, but my dad is an incredible storyteller, like incredible. And my brother got that talent. They can sit down and just, you're so engrossed in what they, these stories that they tell. And so that's always been one of my favorite things is, I can listen to those same stories that he's told all my life, like over and over, because it's wild, but it kind of romanticized it all to me too.
Yes.
Like, why would, people killing each other and all that? Like, that sounds cool, right? And my dad, my dad was real bit like, his favorite thing is revenge movies. And I don't know, that's kind of, I grew up in a house where that was very romanticized. And so I'm like, yeah, that's great. Like mafia guys, and then they can protect you, and then sounds wonderful.
and there are readers out there for it. I know personally for me, when I found mafia romance, I was like, this feels like coming home. They just have a code. It was the loyalty. It was the way they love their women. And do I condone everything that happens if that was real life? No, but it's fiction. So yes, I absolutely do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. My husband's a computer nerd. He's super sweet. Like nothing like the characters in these books. And that's what's so great about it, because this is the fun, the fantasy. Would I really want to be with someone that I was worried about was gonna, end up getting killed all the time, or
no.
Nah. But that's what makes it fun. It's the fantasy. So yeah, I love it.
And I personally started with Silent Vows, which was the Byrne Brothers series, which has just grown like rapid fire within like the last year. Just incredible. And it's just such a good series. I've just absolutely loved it. Is there anything, or do you even have a favorite book out of that series?
I think Stormy and Torrin, Ruthless Salvation is probably my favorite. And I kind of worried about that one because it does go like past and present, which I know some people aren't crazy about. There's the whole domestic violence kind of thread in there, and there's pregnancy in it. And I know, oh my goodness, there's a lot of people that do not want pregnancy in their books. But I was really
love
relieved.
it or hate it.
Yeah, well, and I was really relieved that I actually had a good number of people that were like, I don't do pregnant, like I don't like that, but I went ahead and tried it, and actually it really worked well in this book. And I was like, okay, good, thank you.
we may as well get on to Craving
No,
Chaos.
no. We gotta wait a second.
Oh, I thought you were going to show me Craving Chaos. Stop.
This came in today. I am just like dying. I love it so much. Now, I'm not actually doing paperbacks. This is a proof. And I thought I was going to do paperbacks, but I put out in my newsletter and all that the cost for hardbacks and the demand for them was such that it didn't really make sense to do the paperbacks. I'm just going to do hardbacks.
Yeah.
It wasn't that much more expensive, and the hardbacks will have sprayed edges. I had already started the process of looking into paperbacks, and I got this sample. So the hardbacks will look very similar, but be hardback, and then have the peachy pinky sprayed edges.
Yeah.
And I am so in love with this, though. Like,
they're just so different.
And then what I did, so I'm like, I was too excited today. I had to share this.
I'm so excited you did. It's like a spoiler.
I know. I did family trees at the beginning and at the end, because that was always when people say, can we have family tree? And I'm like, well, but there's spoilers. Like, do you want me to make it a family tree as of the beginning of the series? Because if I show you at the end of the series, then you see, anyway. So I put in at the beginning of the book, a tree, and then at the end of the book I have an updated version, and so each book will have that so that you can see as it goes through. And so I also had Noemi's family, the Moretti family, and then that's the
wow.
Isn't it pretty? I'm so excited. So
each book has a different cover. Like each book has a different.
Yes, each one. It's a similar feel. Mm-hmm. And it's all going to work together. And then I'm planning to do all of the mafia books in that. Like, I will have, because they're all in the same world, have the whole set together. But I am doing the designing myself, and it is taking an inordinate amount of time. But
it's incredible. You've done such a good job. Will they be available on Amazon to buy? Like, where can we?
No, it's off my website, and the order form is up now. I'll have them in, I should be receiving them in August. Mm-hmm. So I have the order form already up. People are ordering, and I'm just so excited. It took a little while because I was nervous about how to handle like the shipping aspect and all of that. And that essentially, I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this, I had to say to the hubs, I was like, this is you then, because I can't take on anymore. Like, if we're doing this, like, this is your project. So he has very graciously agreed to take on dealing with the shop kind of aspect of things. So anyway, I love that. I came in today and I was so excited. I had to bring it to show you. So
I'm so glad you did. They honestly, like that. It gives me like a bit of a medieval vibe. Like, everyone will get a different thing from a book cover, especially like a special edition and artwork and things like that. But that just comes across to me with this, I don't know, like a medieval vibe, that loyal, like, and it all stems for the same thing, right? Mafia, loyalty, and just that code that I
just loved it. And I don't know if that's what people expect or want. And I just was like, I love it. And if you don't have to buy it.
But I think that's the thing though, right? I think it's must be so easy as an author to maybe want to fall into a trap of what do people want, when actually what suits you and what's in your heart and what you want to do is actually what we want as readers. It sort of translates more.
Okay, perfect segue to the new book though. Because if you'll recall, I had set up originally, so the new book, Craving Chaos, is about Shay Byrne, who is a Byrne. So in theory, it could have been part of the Byrne brothers. And I debated about that. I don't know. That's just complicated. I had put in a teaser for her in Secret Sin that she was going to be with this Irish guy named Devlin. I just couldn't. I was going to do a novella. It wasn't happening. I couldn't feel it. I couldn't see it. Nothing was working. And then I was like, I'm just not doing it. But I had so many people that kept saying, what about Shay? What about Shay? We've got to have a story for Shay. And I was like, you're right. I've got to have a story for Shay. And I don't know how, but it just hit me because I knew I wanted to do Renzo Donati next and move to these Moretti men. But it really hadn't occurred to me to put, like, it wasn't something I meant to do, but it just hit me. And I was like, oh my gosh, these two are both like, you know, these tough, hardened characters, you know, real badass. And what if they were stuck together? What if they have no choice but to cooperate and learn to, you know, to work with each other? And once it hit me, I was just like, this is the story I have to tell. And I know there's been a number of people that have said they thought that Renzo's book was going to be an MM romance. And also Shay is a bi character. And so I've had people reach out all different ways about what they thought was going to happen. And I'm like, this is in my head how it happened. And it just wrote itself. Like, I enjoyed it so much, the story and all of it. And I thought, this is not what mafia, like what people expect of mafia.
But I think that's what made it so enjoyable. Like, I didn't see the twist coming. There was just yes, they're both badass, but there was a sweetness to them too. Like, there is a scene where Renzo, can I talk about it? It's just, I don't think it's a spoiler too much, where everything they've been, you know, through hell. And there becomes a time where they're back to civilization, and he can't sleep. You know, our male main character, he can't sleep without Shay. And he just breaks in and he's like, okay, I can't sleep. So this is what's happening now. She's just like, you know, she obviously wants him to be there too. But I just love that it's him that makes that decision. He's like, no, I can't be without you now. We've created this bond. Oh, I melted.
Yeah, no, I mean, they were like kismet. And I went with it, and I was like, okay, well, you know, mafia stuff seems like it's supposed to take place in the city. And this is totally not stereotypical mafia. And I was like, I don't care. This is what you're getting. And the reviews have been like, just blown me away. I was really kind of nervous because it was a character with such everyone has high expectations and wanted so much from her, especially from Shay, that I was like, it's really easy to fall short of expectations when they get real high. So I was definitely have been very nervous when ARCs went out and everything. Get on Goodreads and kind of do like the...
I always find it so interesting to see if authors do look at reviews. I know some are absolutely like, no, I'll post a book and then I do not look at that for eternity, and others are like, you know what, I have to just see what the vibe is so I know what's going on.
Yeah, so I will, for like that first up until release, to see that because you can feel it, to me, if someone is like, yeah, I really enjoyed the book, versus, oh my god, I was engrossed, like this was so great. And I'm always curious, like, I kind of take ARC readers a little bit with a grain of salt, because I'm like, these are people that know my work, already like my stuff.
Yes.
So generally they're going to be pretty sweet about it and say that they like the book. But I'm like, you can feel the difference if a book really resonates. And so I felt pretty good about how much people are enjoying it. So that just makes me so happy. And I'm really excited for it to be out in the world here in a couple days. So
I know it's, and by the time the podcast comes out, it will be out too. So this will be going out on, I think, Thursday night for everyone in America. So I loved the book. Shay was always a character that just, I always was drawn to her. And I feel like you did her so much justice, because it wasn't, like you say, it wasn't set in the city. But I think that as a mafia reader, you need something to be different. You know, we read so much mafia. It can sometimes feel like, not that you're reading the same story, but, you know, you've got your setup, you know, what's coming sort of thing. And I felt like you didn't know what was going on. I didn't know who was after them, what was going on, why.
Yeah.
And then you had this whole in the wilderness in Canada. It was just, I just thought it was great. I loved them both. And I wasn't expecting to love Ren as much as I did either.
So he first appears in the Savage Pride duet, which is kind of flown under the radar. That's my Pride and Prejudice mafia retelling. That it's own little set, but it is one of the other of the 5 families. the Giordano family. It's very brief, like he's just in there as a mention. For whatever reason, he took root in my head, and I knew that he was going to be this really intriguing male lead. And I don't know, like even from that point on, even though because I wrote that before I even wrote the Byrne brothers, and I just knew I needed to bring him back. Like he had to come back.
And they were perfect for each other. You really felt that spark. It was just so authentically there, and just building on it. Oh, it was just, I loved it. I really did. I highly recommend it. It's on last week's podcast for people to go and read, because it is so different as well. I think at the moment, everyone's in a bit of a slump. Like, I need something a bit different. This is it. This is the one. What I know about you is when you're finished with one, you are already on to the next. You're already, in a different world. So I know there is another book in this series. Before we go, is there anything that you can tell us about it?
I don't think it's too big of a spoiler to say at the end of Craving Chaos, everyone that reads my books knows I'll do a bonus epilogue. Actually, usually I set up the next book in the main epilogue. But in this case, the bonus epilogue jumps ahead 4 years in the future. All of my mafia up until now have all been in a relative, like I keep a very detailed timeline of each book, like everything that happens, all the characters, so that I know if someone was at this wedding or whatever, I can make sure that it's in the right, place and time. All of them have happened in a relatively short span of time. They overlap, all of that. And so this is the first time the next book will be jumping into the future 4 years. I wanted to do that because I really wanted to look at Sante and at Tommaso. I don't know how I should have thought of that when I named him. We'll call him Tommy. I don't know. But the thing that got me, I knew if I wanted to do something with Sante, like in Silent Vows, he seems so weak and naive. I just really love the idea of just turning him completely around.
Yeah. And
he is going to go through massive change, and it's going to be very exciting. We're looking at a stalker romance with this one, really. And I've given that in the kind of blurb and stuff. So, I mean, not as teaser, I don't have an actual blurb yet, but we are going to get some really good stalker vibes with this one. So I can't wait.
I'm all about that. It's just, I don't know what it is. I think we just love an obsessed, possessive man in this genre. You make him more of a stalker. We just eat it up. That's what we want. Jill Ramsower, again, giving the people what they want.
That's what I want too. I mean, that's the story that kind of fascinated me. The fact that he goes away for 4 years, everything about him changes. And the only thing that remains is this unquenching desire to have Amelie, and that's the one thing he can't shake, and he's got to give into it. So I'm excited. Now I just have to write it.
Well, this is it, and you're on a time scale. I think I saw August, like planned. Is that?
No, it's October.
October.
October. And I don't know, man. I know I'm like, time is quickly slipping through my fingers at this point. And it's an election year, and I hadn't even thought about that when I was planning. So I'm like, I think it'll stay where it is, but we'll see.
You never know. Know.
I'm going to just have to see how this unfolds for me.
And I know you're going away and you're having a little bit of, time off to celebrate the new release, which is so well deserved. I can't wait for people to read Craving Chaos. It's honestly amazing. It's that mafia vibe that you will want, but also just that different element of, them being together in the wilderness. There's one bed. Like, yes. What more do you want?
He washes her hair. It's like that to me. I don't know what it is that I have about a guy like bathing a girl. Like something about that gets me too, man.
It's a love language. Yeah. It's like when they're nurturing as well. When someone that, masculine can like turn on that nurturing role. Yeah.
Yeah. Every time.
Every single time. Thank you so much for coming on. It has been an absolute joy to have you, and I wish you every success with, the release. It's a really exciting time.
Thank you very much. I always love chatting with you, and I hope you are having a fabulous. Oh, I was going to say summer.
It kind of is, to be fair. It kind of is.
Yeah?
It's winter and it's like 24 degrees. It's
I'm
whaling
like, but you
season.
just were on the beach. Are you?
Yeah, it's winter in Australia, but we're still on the beach. The whales, they call Australia, like where we live, Humpback Highway. So we look out and there's whales everywhere. We don't live a bad life here. We're okay. We're doing fine.
Okay, good. Well, and
Don't worry.
Enjoy, and I know we will definitely be in touch.
Yes, absolutely. Again, thank you so much. It's been an absolute joy.
All right. See ya.
I absolutely adore Jill Ramsower. I couldn't recommend more her books. I've loved every single one, and Craving Chaos is absolutely no different. Which brings us to what books you need to be aware of this week and what's coming up. So we've got Ruthless Reign by Monica Kayne. Kind of sounds like a bingo calling. I love it. That's out on the 20th. It's a dark mafia, forbidden romance. The Way We Touch by Tia Louise, a small town romance. It's brother's best friend. It's sports, and that should be out now. Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. Now, this is said to be her spiciest book to date. Workplace romance, again, is out now. Let me know your thoughts. And Bright Lights and Summer Nights is fake dating, it's billionaire, sports romance, and that's Kat Singleton's out on the 20th of June. So these are the ones that I will be looking to get into for the next week or two. As always, let me know your thoughts. I will put the details below of the books that we have talked about. And thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you next week.